Call the Sawyer County Administrative Meeting to order. Ask clerk to call the roll, please. Oops, I should turn the light on.
Ron Kinsley, Ron Buckholz,
Present.
Tom Duffy, John Regheimer,
Here.
Stacy Hessel. You have a quorum.
The record indicate we have a quorum. Next item is pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Number 4, certification compliance open meeting law.
Let the record show that this meeting was noticed to the news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. Number 5 is meeting agenda is set. Public comment. Is there anybody online?
Nope.
Number 7, approve the minutes of the previous meeting of September 12th.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Righeimer, second by Mr. Buckles to approve the minutes as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 8, Gary, Veteran Service Department report. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
I sped right to the top of the list. Yep, so for September, we had 524 phone calls, 783 letters, and 273 office visits. We submitted 179 disability and pension claims, and so far we've received 348,000 and change for claims decided in the veterans' favor. We continue our co-managed basically counseling sessions with La Crosse. And we've had a few with actually the federal VA clinic, by exception for our Sawyer County veterans that need counseling. We had six individual counselings and 2 group sessions for the month of September. For outreach, we briefed the Great Lakes Native Elders Association. All 11 tribes of Wisconsin were represented on VA benefits that are available to our veterans. We got a phone call and that we're told it was maybe 6 to 12 people that we would be briefing. And anyway, Nicole's like, well, we'll bring the tablecloth, we'll bring the billboard. And it's like, no, it's going to be like talking to the American Legion or VFW here. We walked into LCO conference room, it was 200 to 300 people. So it was a bit of a surprise. It went well. And then we had our coffee and conversation first Wednesday of every month. And then for social media, as far as Facebook goes, we've had two new page followers with 147 total and 91 content interactions. So our training is up to date. We're doing good. I had a phone call yesterday. We ran into an issue with one of our Native American veterans. There's a special loan that's available to Native American veterans. It's a 2.5% interest rate for home loan, which you can't beat with a stick. But the process we started in February with this young man, and it continues on. And finally, they had no clear process available. It's just posted on the VA. This is it, and call this number to get started. So that's it. Nicole ran with this one. Called in February, started the paperwork, and was supposed to close on the house in July, and it ended up it's still out there. The process is still out there. So I contacted the Milwaukee regional office yesterday afternoon, and I got an immediate response back. Ended up talking to the person in charge of this program, basically used the chain of command. I didn't go right to the undersecretary, but and I don't complain a lot, but when there's something that's really bad, it's time to talk. So I talked to the process owner. We talked to the process owner this morning for about 40 minutes on what was going on and asking him for a timeline. Any other program they've got out there, a benefit out there, there's a roadmap. And, you know, with this to help set expectations, what's required to get started, what you should expect as you go through the process of you know, a claim for benefits or an application process, and there's nothing. And we talked about that, and so it looks like we made some changes, you know, hopefully with the federal VA today, as far as getting stuff out there. And the POC, actually, I told her that we have training in the state of Wisconsin in the spring, a spring conference and a fall conference, and it'll probably be very good since we have 11 tribes in the state of Wisconsin to come out and basically talk us through that process, because I know we're not the only office supporting a tribe. So I think we did some good today, and no harm. But I think we got their attention, and I think we got enough attention up at the top in Milwaukee anyway, that they should be able to get some funding to get some paper put out as far as here's our process and our roadmap, and provided some training. So anyway, other than that, we remain active with everybody, and the workload has not slowed down one bit. It's continuous. So. Any questions?
How's the gentleman doing that? He's still waiting for a house for this loan?
He's in the house. He's actually in the house. He's in the house, and he has yet to make a payment. It's what you're dealing with, you know, normally taking a loan out with a bank, there's usually more than just the bank involved with it. And when you get into the VA, there's inspections that the VA expects to be done. But when you get into this loan for the tribal members for homes on tribal government land, now you bring in each tribal government into that process, and you know, it's all on how good does that person know their process and what's required. And as far as accomplishing it to send to the federal government. So there's basically a lot of spoons in one Cheerio bowl, and everybody has to do their part timely, accurately to keep the process moving. So, and there was problems at the federal side, and that didn't help. And there was issues in the tribal government. Not so much, it wasn't anything big, but the biggest problem we had was with the VA itself, the federal VA. And to be fair, months ago when the PACT Act, or actually over a year ago, 2 years ago now, when that PACT Act come through, I told you that the VA was gonna plus up at least 1/3. They needed 1/3 just in compensation claims because they knew they couldn't handle it. The turnover is rampant because it's an unforgiving beast in working in as far as VA claims. It is. It's just a machine. Once you get in the, you know, like a little gopher in the treadmill, once you get started, you can't stop. You got to keep running. And so they've had a lot of turnover. Including this office in this loan department, which is a special branch off the VA loans. And it hasn't been taken care of too good. They started this, it's a NADL loan. They started that program back in 1998. And it has not had a lot of love or care and feeding, I should say, within the federal VA. So, yeah, when I reached out, like I said, I got their attention pretty quick, and you know, but it was all factual, no emotions, just factual, going down the list of this is what happened, and this is not right at all. So, so the young man is in the house, has yet to make a payment, and we've got full guarantee that, you know, they're going to get it straightened out at the federal side. In the meantime, that, the veteran's been advised to set those payments aside, from the start date every month, set that payment aside because it is going to come up where, this is due. So, so far, nobody's been harmed, but the potential of it was, great enough to make, to make a phone call and go, you guys, we need to clean this up. So
But he's got a roof over his head, so we're,
he does. Yep, he does. So. Pardon me? The loan that he took out paid it, but it's hung up. It is, the finalized paperwork is hung up in the federal side. Yeah, and that was the other thing, the seller didn't get paid for 2 months, and it was pushed back 2 months on top of it for when they wanted to close. Things, when you get a loan, it has to hit certain, there's a certain timeline that's expected. And, again, no fault to the veteran. That this had just got totally drawn out. So, but that's one issue of hundreds of issues that come in our office, every day. So,
thank you for all you do, Gary.
yep, you're welcome.
Thank you, Gary.
Yep, you're welcome.
Next, IT.
Morning.
Morning, Mike.
So for us, it's been a summer of camera installations. Last month, we added a bunch of new ones to the courthouse campus itself. So still a few more to do for ambulance and the transitions house. Try to get those done this year yet. The internet at the airport was a little rough in spots, so we put put them in new locations and upgraded the equipment. And we think Derek's happy with the internet now. He says he and the pilots are able to get whatever they need to. It's also going out to the hangar. We're finally starting up our project to do forms automation where we have online permits. Could be almost anything like the highway permits, driveway, Christmas tree, bow permits for forestry, things like that. Where there's payment involved, usually people have to send in a check or come in with credit card. We're gonna try to automate that where they can do it all online, 100%. So it should save trips to the courthouse. So that'll be going on the rest of this year. Other than that, those are the big things. Unless you got any questions.
When they make payments, credit card, who's paying the percentage for the credit card? Is the customer pay that? Or?
That's a great question. We had a discussion how we're going to handle that. It's going to be up to the departments and you, but we'll probably just tack on the fee rather than absorbing it ourselves. So we'll have to probably republicize the cost of some permits. So.
We had extensive conversation about it on Monday. We were through it, and part of it is being with the attack on the fear. Asked to amend the permit fees to include the fee in it. Ultimately, we want traffic, we want people to use website, video traffic. Yeah, the permit fee plus the processing fee online doesn't incentivize them to use the online. So that's why we're talking about asking for just permit fees to do that. So starting with forestry and highway. Next one is zoning. That's really the one you want to get to here. That will help workflow. Just it's a little more complex because zoning, we want processing to communicate with our financial software, process the payment. Then the permit itself, they want it to communicate with Novus, where we keep all of our real estate records. You go in there and look at permits. We want to be somewhat seamless and we're actually making it so it's creating efficiencies. So if somebody permits coming online, it's automatically pushing it out to where it's going to end up being stored.
Chair,
Yes.
So that's great for like the younger generation, but we have mostly a retirement population here. Do you think that that's going to prohibit them? I mean, that's pretty big ask. And plus, if they see, like at a restaurant, if I see what my cash bill would be versus my credit card, I'm going to pay cash. So I just don't want to eliminate that option for them to save money by coming in. And then also, just with the usage, I think you're gonna have a lot of complaints and have to have a separate department for that, for the online.
Might get some, it'll be a learned, it'll always be the option. That's why, one, we don't want to show a separate, we don't want to show a fee plus a processing fee. So we just incorporate processing fee in the permit. Well, that's the community, so food processing. We don't want to subsidize the payment processing of the funds. But I think it is always be a window option. We want to somehow make things more efficient. This is what we need to get. But I think more and more, even with the population, is making online transactions. Back to life. Oh, and we might have a older senior population. We also have 60% of our property owners. They're going to be a business online. We get more requests for that.
If I may add, we did that where I work at, and we show them what the fee is, and they have to pay, they pay it. And I am absolutely shocked at how many people pay that way. And yeah, most of it's younger generation, but you're right, the people out of town, they don't hesitate. I'm shocked.
Part of our conversation too is I had some concern with raising the permit fee, put it in there. So when we bring that to you, that'll be a policy decision, whether you want to have a show the permit fee or make it part of it. Because that rate, probably 10 years now, we've been taking online tax several years. Several years. That's means I think according to the last couple months that is an increase. There is a shown transaction in one more people a day. So you will make this on that.
But offering that option to pay in person would be more of offering a benefit to be local. Like I think rewarding the Sawyer County citizens would be a nice gesture.
Turn your mic on. Andy, turn your mic on. Oh,
We're looking for ways to be more efficient so that we can keep our labor numbers down in order to pay the existing labor more.
it's a good way to do it. All right. Thank you, Mike. Anything else? Thank you for all you do, Mike. Number 10, Human Resource Report. We have a report here.
Not much there. Rose is taking a much reserved week off. Like I mentioned last meeting, we caught up on a lot of our hiring. We are recruiting a CLTS worker here at HHS. Or if you read the reports there, the case numbers are going up, and that's children's long-term support. Case numbers are going up fairly quickly. We're not allowed by the state to have a waiting list there. So we did create a position, but we actually didn't add a position. We shifted position with HHS, CLTS. So we're recruiting for that. I mentioned last meeting, worker shortage in the ambulance area, specifically the paramedics. So we are recruiting as well as looking at what adjustments we can make until we have more paramedics coming in on after they complete their licensing. Now we are going to be next week starting the recruitment for the deputy positions. Clerk's office, the registered deeds, and the tax lister. Somewhat accelerated, but we did get a resignation in the registered deeds office there. So we are looking at contingency plans to get through the year with that. Start, even though the election technically isn't until November, we're gonna start the process now. So, being ready when those people are fully officially elected, they can be a part of the selection process to hire them. We are part of the good time for us as far as not having many recruitments going on. The application software we had been using is this being discontinued, so we had to make a move over to Criterion, which is offered through our website provider, with a little bit of transition to that. We're good. I want to say we're full. It helps that our jail numbers are down. I just add on to that, that part of the conversation with the sheriff's department on adding the position, we were talking about adding a inmate fee there, a daily inmate fee. Don't have the sheriff's committed to that yet. We have to follow what we're doing on how we collect those fees if they're not paid. That'll be with that. The other thing, at least that I've brought up with the sheriff, is that our jail numbers are down consistently now around the 50 mark. At what point do we talk about making ourselves available to house inmates from other jails? Because even though our jail numbers are down, we really can't reduce staffing. But we would have the ability to put inmates from the counties into our cells with the staffing we have.
How many cells we got?
It's not something that the county's been able to do here historically, but.
There's 89, comes to my mind, but I don't know if that's right. How many jail cells do we have?
I don't know that answer. I know our capacity to build a bunk is, I believe, 110. I don't know how many actual cells we have.
I want to say 89, but I don't know if that's right. All right, thank you. County Clerk Department update. All right, Lynn, go ahead.
I'm assuming there's a written report provided. I can confirm that the marriage licenses have been steady. And we met with on the second point, we met with the sheriff's department on the records request increase. Most of those are the sheriff's department, and there probably is a need to look at hiring an assistant for that office to handle the records requests unless we figure out some other way of handling them.
Here's a really dumb question. I always chuckle because there's so many marriage licenses applied for, but they don't get divorces that easy. But immaterial.
That's what I tell them when they apply. This is the easy part.
All right. Anybody have any questions with the clerk's report? Number 12, airport master plan update. We had a public works meeting last night. Go ahead, Andy.
We had a couple meetings yesterday. Kaufman Associates was here to provide an update on the master plan. They completed a draft of chapter 5, which is the development alternative. So the development alternative that takes in all the information from public input sessions we had before, all the technical data, all the FAA data, and it looks at the airport layout. There's an alternative of how the future might be, like 10 to 20 year look. So they did that. They said, I don't have a picture ready to throw up, but they met with the public access, public advisory group at 4 o'clock, gave them what their recommendation is going to be. Then at 6:30 at the public works meeting, did a public information session, so the public was here. Something presented to the committee and the public, and then questions and comments. And ultimately, committee approved sending through to the board next week for a development option. We'll be getting all this information out to the board so they get today. We have a chance to digest it all. Urge you to do a video link to last night's meeting. If you're not up to speed, you might want to watch the consultant's presentation and hear the public discussion. just a verbal synopsis of the development alternative. They propose moving the runway to the east, the primary runway. So that will get it further away from the land side developments where the terminal is. Right now, if you can picture you have a terminal, tarmac, then you have taxi lane and runway. The runway would move over, and the current runway would become a taxi lane. It does put it further away from the terminal. It does, by doing that, create areas for development. Have moved more hangars. They do recommend that county consider acquiring some land. Across from the terminal, there's an industrial site now that is zone industrial. Machine shop, I believe, or equipment repair business. That individual who owns that property, Mr. Weaver, was here last night. Made it known that he's a willing seller, right price. That also would create immediate area for development for hangars. There's a demand for hangars. And the project also does, the proposed development also includes the closing of Airport Road between Namcock Lane and Hospital Road. And that the whole proposal or the alternative is controversial in the neighborhood. Closing the road's not popular, or hangars is not popular in the neighborhood. Master plan is something that county sponsored the airport needs to do over 20 years, but it's really being driven by the increased amount of traffic at the airport, primarily the jet traffic. We're seeing larger jets, larger wingspan, heavier jets, which are able to land on our airport, but there are certain safety features that cannot be accomplished with current configuration. So, the consultants explain that as we get about 500 operations of that class of aircraft, as a sponsor of the airport, the county's expected to move in the direction of addressing those safety issues and improvements at the airport to accommodate those aircraft. And I guess I was surprised he didn't mention this ahead of time, but this year we saw more than 500 operations at the airport of those aircraft. Doesn't mean we need to do something right away, but for a period of years we show consistent traffic on your aircraft. And FAA can expect us as a sponsor to start making plans to make improvements to address that.
Mr. Rick,
And is there a, even a ballpark economic impact, analysis from all this?
Not necessarily from the plan, but the state did put together, or did commission an economic impact report for all airports in the state, individually, like for doing each airport. So we've been waiting for that, because that's one of the questions the public has had is what is the benefit to the airport for the community? As of last week, the week before, the Bureau, I put out a message to everybody saying it's done. It's under review. It's the governor's office. As soon as it clears all the reviews, we're gonna put that up to the public. We haven't seen it.
Well, we may have to make a decision before that's published, sounds like.
We're really pushing to get it before that.
I mean, intuitively it would, I mean, I'm guessing it's a positive impact. We just don't know to what extent.
Right. Being the consultant last night said based on his, he works nationwide, said the airport, what we have here, the economic impact is going to start at 5 million and go up.
Is there a way to, back of the napkin, bring that back to say this, okay, this is 5 million, and that means X to the taxpayers?
Something for us. Sure, it is.
Can Mike do it? I don't know.
Yeah, that's, I've heard the public comments, that a lot of the, okay, let's say Jack Links.
Yeah.
Has a commercial hangar on our airport, they operate a number of jets out of there. But their primary business, not in.
But they have employees here.
They have employees.
Yeah.
Right, and that's. People don't look at that part necessarily.
Well, I just think that would be an easy way to, there's always going to be somebody that's very upset with this decision. I think it's a minority of people. But I think for the ones that maybe question that and the sob stories that come across, this is good for the county. This is what it means to you. And it's a positive impact.
Development, the economic development road, and say like, we're not really in this business, we're not a manufacturing community, we're not part of a lot of site selections, when villagers go around looking for places, but some places, if you don't have this airport, you don't make the first cut.
Right.
This airport, not necessarily to use it, that's how they weed out communities. And we were.
This puts you,
diversifying our economy, I would lead out, one of the first things is this airport. Because if you're a business that has locations nationwide, you're looking at wanting to be connected by
correct.
air, having airport access for your leadership, for even for being able to get parts in and out quickly or same day shipping. There are businesses that look just primarily at that, and that's really not what our airport's based on. That's generally regarded as an asset. Try not to say much in the public hearing, but you see anything with other counties that have airports like this, they're having the opposite conversation we're having. They're not able to generate. They're putting more levy into their airport. They don't get the traffic. They're trying to figure out how to get the grass. How do we bring more business into use?
Right.
Because here we have an increasing amount of traffic. We have that rift of who does it benefit by as the rest of the county being impacted by literally, legitimately maybe 10%, 50% of the public actually has a direct contact with.
Right.
How do you convince them that this has some?
Yeah, and I think the silent majority may, if they weren't silent, would applaud that decision. You know, Stacy says this a lot. It's just a matter of, I mean, I don't know how much we want to, lack of a better term, PR things, but we know that the opposers are very vocal and that spreads. And just a thought of how we, if it's easy to say, hey, look, boom, you know, economic impact, this is good. This is good for everybody but 50 people in the county.
In the plan itself, we are resurfacing the runway next year. That's intended to be a minimum of 10 years of life with the current runway. So everything we're talking about in the master plan, not everything, but the majority of the big things are 10 years plus that will happen. That's hard to think of, like, what do you mean about aviation will be like that? If you think about the counties in the area that done some things 20 and 30 years ago, probably should have been looking at some land acquisition back then to eliminate some conflicts. Or moving the runway so you had hangar development. There hasn't been hangar development for space for a decade now. So you kind of got to be able to look further out. Yes, it has negative feedback today, but hopefully decisions now are positive at 10 to 20, 30, right?
So when you, and maybe this question came up last night and I'm sorry that I didn't attend, but when you talk about closing Airport Road, have you done a traffic counter or anything to see the impact? I live over there and the biggest complaint is the noise control. It's, not the traffic, but there's a lot of traffic that goes from 63 to 77 and vice versa through that road. So if that road is closed, there's another residential road, which is Riverside Road, that's gonna eat that, and it's just residential through there, so it's gonna become a safety hazard. So has any of that traffic study been done before you consider that route?
No one has.
Okay,
I did love to see everyone just traffic data.
yeah, so the traffic with vehicles and then the recreational traffic, because it's a highly biked and highly walked path. So just thoughts on how to get ahead of that study so people aren't complaining, and especially the people on the next road over that are used to just the residential traffic and not the flow through because they all go on Airport. Okay, thank you.
Just,
Did we talk about the expansion to the east there in the lowland and where the creek is? Can they do that, or is there a problem doing that?
There are hurdles to doing it, but it can do that. They're proposing, when you see the map, the rendering where the proposing of the runway is we would have go through
And then for the,
our mitigation.
for the full board, what are we going to be asked? To approve a plan or?
Yes.
What you're being asked to do is approve the development alternative. If you
Okay.
can't do any more work. This is not, you're not approving the plan itself, you're approving the development alternative. Then, once that's approved, they want that approved. If they can go ahead and do some environmental assessments, cost analysis. That's the rest of the plan.
Who pays the cost of that study?
It's being paid for by our FAA and some. Yeah. So with what you just asked, it's important. They'll do one, they want a commitment to the development alternative so they can complete the plan. Because you only get one alternative that they're gonna do all that work on. They do all the work on that, and you say, oh, we want a different alternative, that would be on county there. Pay for that. That's. We have a closed session on and council is only available until 11.
Oh.
So we can come back. I just have to give a administrative report if you have more.
So we have to go into closed session to do that?
Yes.
Entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Buckle, second by Mr. Righeimer to go to closed session. We need a roll call vote.
Ron Kinsley,
Yes.
Ron Buckholz,
Yes.
Tom Duffy, John Regheimer,
Yes.
Stacy Hessel.
Okay. We're going to closed session. Andy, the one that you sent me is all the way back in '07, but you probably already know that. Thank you.
What's
All
that?
right.
Keep on scrolling through it.
Okay, I will later. Airport road closed session, county administrator report.
Yeah, was there any more? I know we cut off the airport master plan.
Question I had on the airport is, assuming it is approved and the extensions and all that happen, how does that compare to the airport in Rice Lake? Still a lot smaller?
The airport in Rice Lake is 6,000 feet long, so it's longer.
Yeah.
Has more hangars than us. But I'd have to look, but last time I looked, and it's not been recent, operations-wise, like how many takeoffs, landings, were pretty similar.
This is,
Interesting.
50/50
Okay.
money.
Thank you.
I guess one last thing on the airport that I didn't mention that you should all be aware of, because you'll hear about this, is that the town of Hayward had a meeting
Get out of there.
Tuesday night.
So that's
And on their agenda, they had 3 things related to the airport. One is that in 2019, the county rezoned all of the airport property to industrial 1, I2 or I1, I can't remember which one. Prior to that, it was a mix of residential, ag, and forestry.
That's probably about
Um,
right.
Citizens from the town went to the town board asking them to they asked the town to ask the county to reverse that rezoning. In particular, there's a 9-acre parcel on Namacoggin Lane that the county owns, that's part of the airport property, that was residential and is now industrial. And I can just jump to their point is that if it's back zoned to residential, then no airport development could occur on it. So the county did do that in 2019. The county did use a statute that I can't say off the top of my head, but within zoning, there's a section of the statute that says the county can rezone its own land without having to go to the town for approval, just that they have to notify the town, they have to notice it in 5 places. The county did all that, I pulled the file. I think Mr. Buckholz was on the committee when they did that. It was on the up and up, but just that they didn't, legally it was done. Well, legally it was correct, I think they agree to that now after they've seen all that. They just feel that they should have been contacted, that's why they want the town to ask for the rezone. They did approve this, so at some point, either the zoning committee, we're gonna get communication to ask for that rezoning. Jay's been in touch with them. The other 2 things that they discussed and approved coming to the county with was asking for an economic, like an economic impact of the airport and the benefits of this master plan. And then they also asked for a no development option. Like, what does it cost if the county doesn't do anything? And the chairman there has been to me, been to Mike, been to the VOA. If the county just ceased operating an airport, we've signed on over the years for grants and assurances with the federal government. We're a sponsor of the airport. Technically, all the land is encumbered by the federal government because it's used federal dollars. if we were to get out of the airport, we would have to repay money to the federal government. For the land is encumbered for the life of the airport. Improvements like runway upgrades or ILS, the navigation equipment that federal dollars have been spent on, has a 20-year life usually, and then it depreciates. At some level, we'd have to repay something. They think we should be spending time on determining what the cost is. Is it 5 million? Is it 10 million to get out of the airport business? So those are the three things that yes, they passed a motion that they're going to come to the county and ask the county to do these things before the master plan moves ahead.
So they would suggest that there's a number they think that would be worthwhile buying ourselves out of it and losing the economic opportunity.
Yes.
But it's not only the federal government we'd have to be paying, it would be Jack Links also, because we'd be liable to them.
That's right.
So,
All the hangar owners could sue us.
yeah, so that is not a cost-effective option in my opinion, but I think that they're just wanting to show their chip.
Yes. And I just, my last comment to the committee last night is we're not going to spend any more time doing that unless the board directs us to go to the FAA and the BOA to figure out those dollar amounts. The economic impact, we are expecting to get the state report, so we can provide that. I have provided other information like the list of hangar owners we have and how much their rents are and how their leases work. And there is some education that we're just trying to help. Not everybody realizes that they pay for the ground under their hangar. The hangar owners own their buildings. And so we have I guess you could hike the rates up on those at some point, but most of our leases are 20-year leases with 10-year renewal options. The county did increase the rental rates 5 years ago. And so new leases are going in with higher rates that increase. And you did put in place an FBO agreement, so now the county is getting a percentage or a per gallon fee on all fuel, percentage of all sales by the FBO. So the county is bringing in more revenue on the airport starting 5 years ago. So there is some education, making sure the public knows all that.
And it does, going back to that one, it does sound like that'd be a waste of our resources to do that study. Could the town of Hayward with their research team do that study if they chose to?
I think they are, and they're
Okay, well, they
making
have
the
their
calls.
team to do it, so that's good.
Okay.
One thing I want to add
Yep.
about the plan. It's a plan, it's not a project. It's a plan that we may or may not do in the future. And if we ever picked a project to do, project being moving the airport runway over, that's a project. That's a minimum of 10 years away. We're resurfacing the airport blacktop next year. So they're not going to spend any more money on that.
Is that another PR piece that do the people, the residents know that? Because I know that it's almost like they all are going door to door with a flyer. I'd be happy to go door to door with a flyer to say the PR piece, because I think that there's been a lot of misinformation. They're going feelings over facts, like a lot of things. I think that that's a great point that you bring up, and that should be pounded home every meeting if we can, please.
And last night, the meeting, it was repetitious. Don't take our houses. We're not taking any houses. But anyway, you're going to hear it again next Thursday. Let's move forward, please.
All right.
But if the newspaper is listening, maybe they would like to do a piece on that part of it.
I think,
On what a plan and versus a project means, because I think that they could help solve the problem instead of enhancing the problem.
Well, I was going to go the different direction on that. The articles that Frank wrote after the spring meeting were pretty accurate. I thought he did a good job of getting the right information out there. He was here last night. I'll reach out to him, but he's been good about asking the questions and putting in the accurate information. So hopefully that continues.
All right, you got a report for us, Andy?
Yeah, just we've covered personnel. Tourist Rooming House is back to the committee, or back to the board next week. I've had no questions for any board members, but if anybody does, please let me know. And I'll get to the town meeting. I think it's just a few towns think it should be a zoning permit rather than a public health issued license. We did that specifically just because it just is, we have 600 of these and running them through a conditional use at zoning is not realistic. The other thing I want to just highlight again is I did not push forward a permit fee or what we do once we develop the ordinance or approve the ordinance. That will come though. Once the ordinance adopted, I have every intention the next month of bringing forward this is how much our permits are going to cost, this is how much renewals are cost, and it will also include a request that those permits fund an additional staff person that would help with permitting and enforcement of our zoning and public health ordinances related to tourist rooming houses. So I didn't want to put that forward until we know what the ordinance is that we're adopting and how much work it's going to take to implement and enforce it. But that is where we'll go once it's, when and if it's adopted. I think we've discussed the master plan enough. We did also last night approve to bring to the board I'll just call it an extension of the airport management contract with Hayward Aviation. It was a 5-year contract originally. We're proposing to renew it for another 5 years. Essentially the same terms, duties, all that, except we are recommending an increase in the compensation for the position. So you'll see that next week. I think we've covered ambulance fairly well. Broadband, we are expecting applications to come to the Economic Development Committee. The key piece that's missing is for the FCC and the PSC to put out the list of project units, the areas that providers can apply to fund. Once those are in place, I think, and they really should be any time now, we'll see applications in November for county endorsement. They'll go through the committee and then to the full board for approving the endorsement. LCO, the CJCC agreement that had expired this spring. Initially, the TGB had declined to renew the agreement or the MOU, and then we understood that they were reconsidering that early summer. Then we heard nothing. Did kind of reinvigorate that conversation, so they did approve a 1-year renewal on the CJCC MOU that runs from February through the end of January. Dollar amount's the same, representation on CJCC is the same. They did add language in. They want the tribal member status for LCO and all other tribes identified on the jail report that's presented every month. That was on there formerly, and the sheriff, with some conversation with others, removed that because we thought there was too much attention being paid to that number, and the real issue is employment, so we switched that to employment. But we also have no problem that that data is still gathered. So we did clarify with them that, is it important that you get the information on tribal status of jail, people in the jail, or do you want it on the report? They want it on the report. So that's in the agreement. And then the other thing is they want Justice Point, who delivers our programs, to give a quarterly report to them. Again, not a problem. Justice Point tries to do that as it has been, and they've not always are able to make the meeting or get a meeting date scheduled. So those are the two additional pieces of contingencies within the MOU. Went through public safety last week. It's on the board agenda for approval by the full county board next week. It expires in January. I guess the third change is they want to go to a year-to-year agreement rather than a 5-year agreement. So I guess we're fine with those 3 things. Those are all doable. But we'll be working on the next agreement pretty much right away. Just happy to get this one in place. Nothing really new at CJCC, except there's just a lot going on there. Now we're moving into a few new programs and grants. There's a fair amount of grant money coming in. I couldn't even give you a summary of it. We're going to be writing it out just because there's so many programs now with the adult population and diversion, pretrial, recovery court, deflection, and then on the youth side, we're also doing some diversion work as well. We're going to put together a summary so everybody can see exactly what the pieces all are. I mentioned the public safety network. That resolution's coming to the board next week for approval to continue moving ahead with that. We're going to have to rewrite our tax deed process because of the changes in state statute. WCA put out a draft template of the, we have to give prior owners of properties a preference with some specific language, as well as the fees we charge and the timeline. And once we take a property now, we have to turn it around within, right now it's 240 days. We have to put it up for sale. After 26, it's 180 days. So there's a fair number of changes there. We met at a staff meeting with representatives of the Callahan Mud Lake Association. They have prepared a petition that they plan to file for formation of an actual lake district. They had to establish boundaries. They had to get at least 51% of the property owners in the district to sign on to that. They appear to have that. They had some very well laid out material, but we actually expect that petition to be filed by tomorrow, probably. We have because when we get it, we have 30 days to have a public hearing on that. Talk to the chair. That will go to the Land, Water, Forestry Committee. The state guidelines recommend it goes to the county committee that deals with natural resources. So that's the one. The committee will hold a public hearing. They'll have to summarize their findings, send those to the county board. And then the next step would be for the county board to consider a resolution to form the Lake District. There is going to be, we've already heard, some individuals that are in the boundaries are not in favor, so that will come out at the public hearing. But I don't know that the county has had a Lake District formation in recent history, so that'll be something new for all of us. I've been involved with the disbanding of a Lake District, but not the formation of one. And then on just a summary, last week, I think everybody's aware of the letter that came from the Sawyer County unit of the Wisconsin Towns Association expressing concerns with some of the zoning processes and timelines. So I did invite all the town chairs to come to a meeting. I think we were missing just 3 or 4 of them. I think we made progress. Just to summarize, out of the gate, TRHs got brought up. There was a request to consider a moratorium on that, on new TRHs. We don't believe we can do that, but there's concern there. Timeline was a concern that we have not communicated adequately to the towns what the timeline is for zoning applications, particularly rezones and conditional use permits. And we do have one, like the zoning office. If you have an application in by the 15th of this month, 15th of October, it actually goes for action at the December meeting. They need the time in the middle for publication, doing their due diligence, notifying the town. But Jay is going to prepare a more formal timeline that will communicate to the town so they know the process. Towns were concerned about the zoning office being understaffed, rush processes, lack of communication. So we addressed those. There's a position proposed in the zoning. But really what it boiled down to at the end of the day, and this kind of came out a little bit later in the meeting, is that I don't think it's universal amongst all the towns, but some of the towns feel that the county does not, say respect. We're dismissive of the towns. We don't value the input they provide to the process. And that centered on a couple things. One thing that they brought up that, just so you're all aware, where they say this really started is when the county cut the towns out of the approval of ATVs on the county roads. They felt that was choreographed. And I honestly, when they brought it up at the meeting, I was a little, like, I told Ron, I feel like we debated the ATVs on county road thing for months. But the way it went through the board created some hard feelings. And then on the heels of that, the zoning committee has been working on the multi-dwelling ordinance revisions and getting, the towns are not, even though they brought the towns in to get their input, came out with another proposal. The towns rejected that unanimously. And Rebecca, our counsel, in talking to the zoning committee, did tell the zoning committee they did not have to get the towns on board. That we didn't need, we could go around the towns is the way they took it. and I was at the meeting where that happened, and it's really not what was said, is that right now, the county, when they do a rezone or they do an ordinance revision, goes to the town first and asks for their input and tries to get them on board first. Statutorily, though, the council communicated to the zoning committee that by statute, you don't have to do that. You could amend the ordinance, notify the towns, and then they have, I think it's 10 days to object unless they filed, and they could have 20 days. Nobody's gone that route. I think the zoning committee was looking for options, and they were communicated that. So I think we've tried to smooth that out a little bit, but we do need to get them a timeline, and I think improved communication, and with the next ordinance rewrite regarding multi-dwelling, suggested that we'd have another meeting like the one we did last week, to bring them in, either the board chairs or their representatives, to go through any potential language on a ordinance change. And then, there was the request for them to get the gaming compact dollars. So hopefully we made progress. I think there was, Ron was there, Kinsley. There was, I think, some positive comments. People walking out the door felt we had made some progress just by getting everybody around the same table.
They felt like at least we opened a chain for conversation, and that was important to them, I think.
Thank you for doing that. Did you reiterate, like, if they wanted more income, they could do the rooming house instead of getting the gaming? Because if we only have 4 out of how many townships do we have?
No, it did not go into that.
Okay.
We did bring up, though, that, if they're unhappy, like with the tourist rooming house, towns can adopt their own tourist rooming house ordinance. I did mention that. We also briefly covered about potentially a rewrite of the zoning ordinance, which they did not feel is necessary. But I said, moving ahead with the state, and I think it's Act 260, I remember. Now it's a little bit easier for towns to opt out of zoning without having to adopt village powers. And so, if they're unhappy with their county zoning, we want to work with them, but there are options that they can take zoning on themselves and not be a part of county comprehensive zoning.
I think when I listened to them, it sounded like they didn't understand where they could get other funds, and the room tax is a resource for them to get other funds, and versus trying to get them from the gaming tax, which, we've all talked about, so.
Yeah, and I don't honestly know where the gaming compact request for funds was out of left field to me. Really, there's probably more to that story that I don't know about. But that's kind of where we're at with things.
Newspaper?
Sorry. So I got those were due September 30th. I sent them out, just emailed them to you last night. I'm not prepared to choose one or the other today. If I was to make a recommendation just based on my review of them, I don't think we should have a newspaper of record, because that boxes us into only having to use that newspaper. And if you look at their circulations, there is definitely, the record is twice as much as the Gazette. But the Gazette is an important part of the county. Rather than have a newspaper record that we only advertise in, I would say we commit to just running ads in both papers. It's some departments are already doing that. For others, it'd be a little bit of an expense increase, but that probably is the safest thing for us to do to make sure we're getting everybody informed of the legal notices we're required to put out there.
Thoughts from the committee?
We also do it on our website, correct?
Yes.
So there's a lot of avenues for people to see, because I don't think everybody reads newspapers anymore, but, the online. So I would make a motion if needed to put it in both newspapers.
May I ask? I don't want to, if it's okay, I don't want a motion. I just want us to continue putting in both papers.
Okay, it's just,
If that's okay. Comments?
I have a question, with that, so as long as we're putting it in both papers, and say like zoning puts in a publication and it's missed by the record, but it's still in the Gazette, we can still act on that through zoning?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and that's why I'm recommending not doing a newspaper of record, because if we declared the record as our newspaper of record and they don't run it, we're stuck.
Right. That brought up the whole thing to start with.
Yeah.
And I would say just doing this process was good. Just having some communication, like I had a good conversation with Rich Jackson from the record. And he brought in the regional people to understand because they have knowledge there were some missed publications. They've tried to address that internal. We did get the calendars from them for the next year, just know when their publication dates are based on any holidays or early deadlines. So I think it was just a good exchange of communication. We got their publication, even though we knew that, it's nice to get their publication rates in black and white. So I think they'll be happy that we're going to use both papers.
You have anything else, Andy?
No.
Does anybody have any questions? The only thing we have left is board appointment committee updates. I know the next board meeting Thursday night is going to be long, but people that went down to the conference, maybe you could give a little report perhaps at that time regarding that at the end of the meeting, if you feel like it. Anybody have any future agenda items? If not, meeting adjourned. Thank you for your valuable time.